Protests by the ruling party and opposition supporters are continuing against the disputed election results. Thousands of demonstrators clashed with the Venezuelan security forces in the South American nation hours after Nicolas Maduro was declared a winner for another 6-year term, extending a quarter century of socialist rule until 2031. The electoral authorities said Maduro won 51% of the vote on Sunday. The opposition candidate Edmundo Gonzalez accused Maduro of unheard tactics and questioned the legitimacy of the tabulation. He said that he had proof of the tally showing that he had won more than twice as many votes as Maduro. Venezuela's opposition leader Maria Corina Machado declared that Gonzalez garnered 73% of the votes, and that multiple independent exit polls and quick counts decisively show his victory.
I came to the street. We want freedom. We are tired of this government. We want a change. We want to be free in Venezuela. We want our families to return here. We don't want them to leave anymore. We want to be free with our families.
In the capital, Caracas, a brawl broke out after protesters confronted the riot gear-clad national police. At least 2 people were killed. The situation in the neighboring neighborhood of El Valle and the city of Maracay worsened as police used tear gas canisters to disperse the angst-ridden demonstrators. Many of them threw stones and hurled objects at authorities. A man was even reported firing a gun, but no one suffered a gunshot wound or injury. Protests in Coro Torre downed a large statue of late President Hugo Chavez, a mentor to President Maduro. And in the pro-government stronghold of Catia, citizens rallied, traditionally banging pots and pans to oppose the poll results. Here's what they said.
We have been following all of the acts of violence promoted by the extreme right. I can tell the people of Venezuela that if they have done harm, we are acting. We already know this movie. So once more, along with the civil, military and police union, we are acting. We already know how they operate.
Thousands of people walked miles and surrounded the presidential palace, chanting freedom. They rallied for the government to fall. Venezuelan President Maduro warned that he knew how to, quote, deal with the violence. Venezuelan election results were met with doubt in Washington and beyond, but some countries backed Maduro's victory, while independent pollsters called the official numbers as being implausible. The United States expressed serious concern about the results, saying that they do not reflect the vote of the people. The Biden administration accused the Maduro government of electoral manipulation. It said that the fraudulent results stripped Maduro's claim of victory of any credibility. Reaction from Latin American leaders were mixed. Argentine President Javier Milei called the official results fraud, while Costa Rica and Peru rejected it. Peru's government ordered Venezuelan diplomats in the Andean nation to leave within 72 hours. Panama suspended diplomatic relations with Venezuela, calling for electoral review. Chile, on the other hand, said that it would not accept any results that are not verifiable. Venezuela's allies of Russia and Cuba congratulated the incumbent, Nicolas Maduro, on his election win. Kremlin said that the political opposition in Venezuela should accept what Moscow called a defeat. All right, for more on this, we are being joined by Renata Segura, Director of Latin America and the Caribbean Program at the International Crisis Group. She's joining us from New York. Thank you so much for joining us on WION. What a 24-hour it's been in Venezuela as we all watch. The opposition says that it has proof that its candidate defeated President Maduro in these disputed elections. What is your view on the situation right now?
Yes, things are very tense at this moment in Venezuela. As your report was saying, there have been massive protests since yesterday. They have calmed down a little bit this early morning, but the opposition leaders yesterday called Venezuelans to come out to the streets today at noon. It's supposed to be a kind of controlled demonstration for only an hour, but we'll see if that remains planned. For now, the opposition's plan is really to try to stick to the electoral route and show the world that Maduro has done fraud. And the way that they're doing this is that through the witnesses that the opposition had in all of the voting sites, they have the receipts, essentially, that the machine brings out with the votes. They've collected around 75% of the acts that are of the entire country. And they are saying that they can prove with these receipts that Maduro is lying about the results. Given that the international community reaction has been to demand that the government shows the results, saying that Maduro wins, it's going to be very difficult for the government, I believe, to be able to show such proof. So the possibility that the protests continue and that the international isolation of Caracas remains even deeper, it's very, very likely.
What's been concerning is, as we mentioned in our report as well, that Mr. Maduro says that he knows how to deal with these protesters. So the results have been declared. The protests are increasing day by day. How do you see the situation from here on?
Look, I think the key actor at this moment in Venezuela is going to be the security forces and how they react to the growing protests. We saw the Minister of Security come out yesterday and call for calm. They have been on the streets facing the protesters, but as of now, there hasn't been open repression. We are getting reports of around 5 people dead and around 100 people detained, but it's not clear that it has been the security forces that have shot at them. Venezuela has these paramilitary forces that are supportive of the Maduro administration called collectives. And we saw yesterday many of these collectives shooting at the air, being a little bit more aggressive than the security forces. But I think in the developments today, we will have to see how decided the security forces are to actually repress as they've done in the past, or if maybe they're seeing the writing on the wall and thinking they are not going to cross that line.
Yeah, it was very interesting to see videos online where some security forces or local police were taking off their uniforms and joining the protests. So we see U.S. and many neighbors of Venezuela calling out Maduro after the results. But again, countries like Russia and China have stuck to their stance and are backing Maduro. What about this on the international front?
Yes, I mean, I think it was fairly predictable that those people that have been allies of Maduro from the beginning were going to, endorse his win with no hesitations. But I think it is very important that in general, Latin America, with the exception of Cuba and Honduras, has taken this position of asking to see the electoral proof before endorsing Maduro. It's going to be very difficult for Venezuela to continue to govern when you have 80% of the population against you and the entire neighborhood. I think we're going to have to very closely watch what happens with Brazil and Colombia, which are the two neighboring countries of Venezuela that have more of a stake. Obviously, one of the worries is that if Maduro remains in power and the economic crisis continues, we're going to see a new wave of migration. The governments of Colombia and Brazil are very interested in preventing that from happening. So we know that there are negotiations behind closed doors. Brazil has been very cautious on the way that they presented. The Colombian government has been relatively quiet. So this is the moment when the international community can do really discreet negotiations with the Maduro administration to try and find a solution that is peaceful.
Renata Segura, thank you so much for joining us on WION and for your insight. We'll be watching this story very closely as it develops, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.